Just because Canada has joined the majority of UN members calling Palestine a state doesn't necessarily make Palestine a state. International recognition is critical, but not the only factor. Borders, governance, a permanent population, all this remains unresolved. One more reason why statehood and a two-state solution have yet to happen. In an era when cooperation seemed possible, ambitions for a two-state solution didn't work. This feels like an era of despair. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict just rage and ruin. So what, to foreign policy observers, explains the timing? Why do this right now?
This is an absolutely devastating conflict that is creating a lot of instability in the Middle East, that is making life miserable for Palestinians, that is causing insecurity for Israel. It affects our domestic politics, as we've seen with the protests and all the polarization that surrounds this conflict. So if we can do our small part to try to foster the conditions to see some kind of progress, then why not?
To say a small part suggests recognition is a symbolic act. Those counting on it give symbolism enormous weight.
Hopefully, recognition by Canada, by the United Kingdom, by France, will give greater impetus to the rest of the international community to put pressure on the state of Israel to withdraw from the occupied Palestinian territory in which it is illegally present, and ultimately one day to find peace with the Palestinian people.
Is there a cost to Canada of recognizing this?
There is a certain level of risk, of course, for Canada in recognizing Palestinian statehood. I think the most important one is with our relationship with the United States.
Given the strains of that relationship, Canada may see it as strategically smart to align with some European nations now, also recognizing the state of Palestine.
The United Kingdom formally recognizes the state of Palestine.
But U.S. repercussions aren't out of the question. Trump posted this in July. Wow, Canada has just announced that it's backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada. An Angus Reid survey in August asked if Canada should still pursue recognizing Palestinian statehood, even if it was a barrier in trade relations with the U.S. 63% said yes. Could there be other costs for Canada? Well, some Jewish groups are sounding the alarm.
Well, I think there's a concern that the recognition of Palestinian statehood emboldens extremism. It's a reward for Hamas. I'm concerned that one of the costs of moving forward with this initiative will be to embolden not just extremists in the Middle East, but extremists here in Canada as well.
What happens now depends on each country. All have slightly different conditions for recognition. For Canada, a reformed Palestinian Authority and ensuring free elections in 2026 that Hamas play no part in are core.
I think it's absolutely imperative that a future Palestinian state be one that isn't a failed state, that isn't a terror state, that's a democratic state. And the concern is that the process that's being pursued will not yield that result.
What do you make of an offer of conditional recognition in 2025 based on conditions that don't need to happen until 2026?
I'll be perfectly frank with you. These conditions are strictly for domestic audiences in order to massage the politics of this domestically.
Canada has more caveats. Recognition, yes. Normalization, not yet. Meaning no embassies, for example, until hostages are released, reforms committed. When all this changes on the ground and in Canada is far from clear. I wonder if there's any part of this that to you feels like a show.
Absolutely. On the one hand, for the government to try to do something will just fuel these pre-existing disputes. But on the other hand, for the government to do nothing and take a much more passive stance will still keep these fault lines extremely deep. So it's a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario.
Now, to find out more about the decision to do this and what happens if the conditions are not met, I spoke with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Anita, Anand, earlier this evening. Minister, you're inside of the UN. We're just outside. I know schedules are very tight, so thank you. Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump have made it very clear they don't like this plan of Canada's, suggesting that there could be consequences for Canada. There is a Palestinian frustration that this is recognition, not normalization. Who does this serve?
Well, let's be clear. Canada is not the only country that has recognized the state of Palestine. The work that we are doing to ensure that there is peace in the Middle East involves a step-by-step approach, and one of those steps is to recognize the state of Palestine and to ensure that Hamas has no role in the future governance of Palestine. The hostages are returned and Hamas lays down its weapons. In addition, we are working with the Palestinian Authority to ensure that there will be democratic reforms, greater reform than we have seen to date from the Palestinian Authority. And it's for that reason that I have been holding their feet to the fire with the UK and France and Australia because of this need to see more from them, certainly before any relations are normalized. So your question is, who does this serve? This serves the viability of the two-state solution. What we are seeing, however, is the viability of a two-state solution rapidly eroding. And in order to preserve the possibility of two states, Canada takes this move today.
Minister, it's interesting that Canada is offering recognition now for conditions to be met later. What is your move if those expectations are not met?
I want to here draw a distinction between recognition and normalization. Recognition is binary. It is a yes-no proposition, and Canada, with many, many other countries, has decided that we will recognize the state of Palestine in order to preserve the two-state solution. Normalization of diplomatic relations, on the other hand, is a process, and Canada holds the decision-making authority as to how that process rolls out, whether and when there will be ambassadors appointed, whether there will be the exchange of visas. This is not the time for normalization of relations. There needs to be more work done.
Just to be clear, Minister, I understand what you're saying, that normalization could come or not come, but recognition exists, that there's no circumstance under which you would withdraw recognition.
That's correct. It is a principle under international law that once a state is recognized, the recognizing state does not withdraw that recognition. On the other hand, as I stressed, the decisions relating to normalizations are within the state granting the recognition, and so we will retain that authority until we see what we need to see, including Hamas returning the hostages, laying down its weapons, and the Palestinian Authority putting forward democratic reform.
All right, Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.